Sinlessness by Frederick Chambliss Wemyss. "What do you think?" said Eve, holding the apple in her hand. Bite it," said the snake, but Eve just kept walking toward Adam. "The snake says I should bite this," said Eve. Adam looked up from the pear pâté he was making. "Isn't he droll?" Adam said. "You think so," said Eve. "I think so, but the snake takes himself," and here she leaned in toward her mate and whispered loudly, "very seriously." Both Adam and Eve laughed. Eve threw the apple hard. It smashed against the apple tree, and Adam and Eve heard the snake slithering away in the rocks and leaves. "Do you think pear paste wrapped in fig leaves would taste good?" said Adam, after plucking another apple and throwing it at the snake's rattle, which he hit. "Well," said Eve, "there's nothing says it wouldn't." With that, Eve tore some fig leaves off the fig tree and handed them to Adam. Adam, using a clamshell, scraped the mashed pears off the flat surface of the boulder he was using for a table. He put dollops of pulverized pear in the fig leaves and rolled 2 treats. "Eve," said Adam, as he and Eve took bites of the tasty treats, "do you realize we are unparalleled chefs?" "Absolutely," said Eve. She grinned. "You know, the snake can't even eat this stuff. He has to eat flies." "Loser," said Adam. "Isn't he?" said Eve. They laughed and laughed, shaking their heads. "What should we do with the 2 extra fig leaves I picked?" said Eve. Adam snatched one up from the table, let it flutter to the ground, and kneeled on it. "It would make a great prayer rug," he said. Eve took the other fig leaf from the table. She held it out to the side, and Adam charged. "Olé!" said Eve. "Olé!" Then they ran all over the Garden of Eden, snapping the fig leaves at each other after dipping them in the little spring. Every animal they passed was mystified. Suddenly the snake hissed at them from between a deer's antlers. "Apples," he said. "Apples." "None for me," said Adam. "Me neither," said Eve. Adam snapped his fig leaf on the snake's head, which stunned the snake for a second. Adam and Eve ran to the top of a rock. "He has no sense of humor," said Adam. "I know," said Eve. "And this thing he has with the forbidden fruit. You know what's ironic," said Adam. "He couldn't eat forbidden fruit if he wanted to, but he desperately wants you to have it." "As if I'm going to eat forbidden fruit," said Eve. Both Adam and Eve raised their arms up and shook their heads. "I think he's a little afraid of me," said Adam. "He thinks he'll persuade you to bite an apple and that you'll get me to try one." "What a skunk," said Eve. "You know what?" said Adam. "What?" said Eve. "I've had a little plan for a while." "Oh, don't tell me," said Eve. "You know what it is, I bet," said Adam. "I bet I do," said Eve. Without a word, Adam and Eve set about their happy task. They stood up, looked left, looked right, saw the snake coiled up in his favorite palm frond, and tiptoed past. Snickering, they crossed a stream and walked into a little forest. With jagged tools made from rocks, vines, and wood, Adam and Eve spent several hours making a boat. They tied the boat to a maple tree and placed it in the stream. "It floats," said Adam. Eve tested the rope. "It's secure," she said. They picked up a giant shovel they'd crafted. They walked across the stream again, tiptoed up the hill past the snake, and didn't stop until they reached the apple tree. With patience, devotion, and strength, Adam and Eve dug up the apple tree and carried it, roots and all, down the hill past the serpent, who still slept on the palm frond. With their burden they entered the forest and reached the stream. They placed the tree in the boat. Adam tipped the boat with his hands. The boat rocked and the tree rocked with it. "It's snug," Adam said. Eve cut the rope and the craft drifted down the stream. Adam and Eve ran along the banks as the stream widened. They ran past rocks, mountains, and beasts. Great fish swam beside the boat. Birds followed its course from above. Adam and Eve kept up with the boat until the river was so wide they could not even see each other. But from the bank Adam chose, he could see the branches of the tree sticking out from the boat in the vast body of water, and from the bank Eve chose, she could see the other side of the boat and the branches sticking out. When the boat went over the edge of the falls, leaving nothing behind but the pinkest sunset Adam and Eve had ever seen, Adam began walking back and Eve began walking back. By the time they could see each other on opposite sides of the river, the moon was up, and by the time they reached the place from which they launched the boat, which took away the apple tree and all its fruit, the moon was beamed luster on their embrace. They lay under the palm frond that night. It was not as low to the ground as it had been earlier, the snake having vacated it, but its breadth was enough to shield the lovers from any rains. Adam and Eve slept so well they didn't notice if there had been rain or not, but when they woke, all the creatures of Eden were around them. Adam and Eve felt tremendous love for all creation. Next, they were aware of a slithering sound. "Oh, him," Adam and Eve said at the same time. The various beasts and bugs jumped as the snake darted under their feet. Back and forth he went, his tongue slipping in and out. "Where is it?" he said. "Where is it?" Adam, sitting on a log with Eve, said, "He doesn't even stop to hear the answer." "Good," said Eve. All day they sat on the log, wiggling their toes in a shallow pool a rhinoceros dug for them with his horn. They listened to a giraffe chewing the top leaves of an oak and patted the little chickadees which had alighted beside them on the log. And they watched the long, twisting entity which had tried to tempt them to eat apples traverse Eden inch by inch, up and down, back and forth, every which way until he started up Eve's leg. "You're a pest," said Adam, gripping the snake under the jaw. He held the snake in front of him, its mouth opening wide and its tongue protruding. "What do you think, Eve?" said Adam. Eve stuck her hand in the snake's mouth, and as he started snapping it shut, she forced her other hand and soon was ripping the snake in two, all the way down to its whirling rattle. "An excellent response, my dear," said Adam, and they cooked the tempter over a fire built for them by lightning bugs. "Are you hungry?" Adam said, skewering a piece of burnt snake. "Not for him," said Eve. "Me neither," said Adam. Adam threw the piece of snake back on the fire, and he and Eve watched the snake burn until he was nothing but smoke. "Well," said Eve, "that's done." "Adam," said a voice. "Eve," the voice added. Adam and Eve looked up with a sense of glee. "Well, hello, Lord," they said. They got off the log. Adam saluted. Eve curtsied. "Why do you curtsy," said God, "when you have no dress to lift?" "What?" said Eve. "Adam," said the Lord, "must you salute with more than just your hand?" "What?" said Adam. "I wouldn't look down if I were you," said the Lord. Adam and Eve looked down, first at themselves and then at each other. They gasped. This is the end of part 1.